away down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators. Right away, come away, right away, come away. Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles. Right away, come away, right away, come away. We'll all go down to Dixie.
Hello and welcome to New Recruits, where I, as your officer, will give unto you knowledge pertaining to the American Civil War. For the first topic, I want to talk about a very common did you know sort of thing, for if you've spent enough time Wikipediaing the American Civil War or caught talking with an American Civil War reenactor, they will, of course, ask, hey, did you know blank, to show off their knowledge. One of the most common ones I've heard is, did you know that the Confederacy used pikes? Now, this is a very common way of showing off of a weird fact, because this is a war taking place in the 19th century, and the pike was used last in major ways in the 17th and a little bit into the early 18th century, though that was more Eastern Europe. Now, the short of it is, yes, the Confederacy did use pikes. Now, this isn't usually actually as the way it's presented. Well, first, both sides used pikes depending on your definition of it. I'm referring to the lance, as it was used by cavalry at the time. There was a lancing unit in the north, though they would later change to, I'm pretty sure, reloading rifles, if not carbines. And the Confederacy also had similar units. What they're primarily referring to is infantry soldiers primarily using pikes. Now, did this happen? Well, there's a definite possibility guerrilla types, along with NCOs, used pikes. But when it comes to a unit using pikes of infantry that is organized within one of the major Confederate armies, the answer is no. So where does this did you know come from? Well, they planned on using it. Robert E. Lee, who will eventually become the main leader of the Confederate armies, supported using the pikes along with Georgian governor. The reason they gave was the Confederacy anytime doesn't really have a lot of material to manufacture the muskets or rifles or any sort of more modern weapons to use in the war, so let's use some old ones. In fact, both sides imported a lot of weapons from Europe and specifically England at the time. So that's where the idea comes from. Now, the last time any major world country proposed using the pike in any sort of offensive way would be during the French Revolutionary Wars before Napoleon took over. They suggested using and producing en masse pikes for their army. The reason they gave was, we don't want them wasting ammunition, and these revolutionaries are hoplite, they're going to charge right in. And I believe that is also one of the main reasons that the Confederates were willing to use them. Now, they produced these pikes, but they weren't actually used in any combat role. The one they produced them was the year 1862. The Confederacy is doing just fine. Right then, well, I mean, when it comes to main things like attrition and the ability to produce weapons, they're not, but from an outsider looking only at victories, yes, the Confederacy is doing great at this time. So they produced them, I believe around 500,000, though their actual one was not 500,000, half of what they were supposed to do. So there definitely was plans to produce 10,000 for Georgia, but that was undone. before they could produce the full 10,000. 500,000 is what the French were supposed to produce. They didn't use them. They used them to help train recruits, but they gave them more outdated muskets. They, I'm pretty sure, would give them pistols or anything, and these pikes were only used for training. I mean, of course, the pike is not as useful against the firepower of any sort of musket or rifle. That's why they were stopped being used by the mid-1700s. But what can we learn from this? It's really the tale of the Confederacy. Production is going to be a problem that plagues them. They are primarily agrarian, they don't have a lot of the factories the North does, so they're relying on very little amount of supplies. It also shows a little bit of overestimation of what their troops are. The way Confederate generals looked on their troops, including Confederate politicians, is energetic people ready to fight and defend their homeland. That you could give them a pike and they would charge in with it against a hail of gunfire. And while there are many acts of bravery on the Confederate side showing charges against withering gunfire, I believe the pike would be a step too far. So, lack of production and this overestimation of the bravery and usefulness of the Confederate soldiers is why the pike was suggested, and the fact that so early in the war they're resorting to this, you can start to see why. So if the next time you have a American Civil War reenactor or a Redditor say, "Did you know the Confederacy used pikes during the Civil War?" you can pretty much say, "No, they didn't." There's a weird, nerdy, prepubescent 16-year-old told me so. They'll look at you confused and probably stop talking to you. I hope you liked this first episode of New Recruits. If you want to see me talk about the American Civil War more, you can click here for the latest episode at the time of this taping. And if you want to see me talk about something else, you can click right here for an episode on Jews in the early Soviet Union. See you next time.